reporting on the games you love by people who love to game. The MMO Reporter Network. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of MMO Reporter. On this episode, it's a special Post-PAX podcast. Look at all those peas. My mic is incredibly wet right now from all that popping of peas. I am joined by our two wonderful reporters who were at PAX West. Still want to call it PAX Prime. PAX West 2016. We've got in this corner at the Carrie Mac. Carrie, hello.
Hello.
And the speaker of all things awesome and stuff that has done tech for us in the past and done hardware, Jason.
Good evening.
Hi. So both of you were at PAX. I wasn't able to make it, as I mentioned in our intro video a while back, but you two carried the load, and wow, what a job you did. First of all, I want to say how outstanding it was to see all the content start to come in, and I think you both did an outstanding job. So well done to both of you. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you very much.
Check in the mail?
I will pay you twice as much as I got last year.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
100% raise is never going to see that. I mean, really.
Really. Yeah, it's true. That is true.
Come on, don't complain here. Okay, so we do have some stuff to talk about. What we're going to do this episode is we're going to talk about some of the cool things that they got to see and tease some of the different videos that you're going to and audio stuff that you're going to get to see. Some of it is going to make it out in both audio and video format. Some of it in just video. Because it doesn't lend itself to audio very well, but you're going to get to enjoy all this stuff on our YouTube channel or through the RSS feeds, iTunes, Google Play, all that fun stuff. So let's start first with just a general PAX cool thing. Carrie, what was your favorite thing that you saw that wasn't one of the games we're going to talk about here at PAX?
My favorite thing that I saw, there were big freaking huge dinosaurs. Ark had brought... I am not sure if these were supposed to be to scale, but they were humongous. Brought a couple of dinosaurs at their booth, and you could wait in line and climb up like 2 stories up and sit on this thing, which I was not going to be doing. But yeah, so
I'm assuming with all things PAX, that line was probably several hours long.
Yeah, I'd not be surprised.
I asked because I thought about doing it, and the line when capped was an hour and a half to get your picture taken on top of a dinosaur. However, I will say that out there on Reddit, and maybe Chris, if you want to link to it, it's pretty cool. Somebody in a dinosaur cosplay did get up on top of the dinosaur. So you can go out there on the internet and find a dinosaur riding a dinosaur.
And it was pretty
This
epic.
is not a joke.
Yes, you can.
And I got my Fallout swag, so I was happy.
Woot woot. That's fantastic. What about you,
Yeah.
Jason? What did you see that really stuck out at you as something cool that only happens at PAX?
Something cool that only happens at PAX. You know, there were a lot of panels this year that were super interesting to me, and I went and visited a few of them. Saw some VR panels. I'm a huge VR nerd. I'm sorry, I can't help but talk about it. Saw some great educational panels. They had an entire floor of the Westin Hotel dedicated to nothing but VR. You could go and do free play of Oculus titles, of HTC Vive titles. Lots of really cute new games coming out. I am hoping that VR continues on its current trend, so we'll start to see some really big titles start to come out for this, because once you throw a big development house at it, boy, there's going to be some really cool stuff to see.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is really, really cool. All right, so that was some cool stuff that we saw around PAX. Now let's get right into some of the coverage that we're going to have coming out. Carrie, why don't we start with you? What is the first thing that we're going to talk about with you?
Well, one of the first things that I saw is I had an interview with Enway, which is making a game called Chrono Blood, which is it is a mobile fighting game, and it's really pretty. And it's the controls are actually quite easy to use on the phone. I was even able to do it, and I'm not the best fighting game person. It won't be out until later this year. I also saw out of the whole, well, the game is really pretty and it's really, really neat. And it'll be out later this year, but they had a controller that wrapped around the iPhone,
Oh,
which should
cool.
be in the video that you can buy. So that was like amazing, and that's not Enways. That's like anybody can buy it for any iPhone.
I hope it
but
doesn't need a headphone jack.
No, I don't think so. I hope not.
Too soon,
I don't.
Chris.
Yeah.
Sorry. I know, I'm a bad person.
But yeah, I don't think so. But yeah, it made using it felt like I was holding like a Vita or something.
Oh, cool.
That kind of feel and look.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty game. But
Nice.
it's a fighting game.
Well, I saw a part of the video that should be out this weekend, and it looked very, very interesting. It's nice to see something that, well, it looked like a console game, not a mobile game.
It did.
Yeah. So that is absolutely exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that. Before we get on to Jason's, why don't you talk a little bit about the next one that you saw as well, that West of Loathing?
That West of Loathing is so cute. I actually am going to be keeping a very close eye on when that comes out. They think that was going to be in early 2017. It's made by the people who make Kingdom of Loathing, which I think has been running continuously on the internet somewhere since like 2008.
Oh, cool.
So it's very tongue-in-cheek. It is stick figures who they said it's like Skyrim with beans, something or other. Hats and then beans. There's beans involved because you're like a bean slinger or something. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, and it's lots of reading. So you read, and it's kind of like Kingdom of Loathing is. It's
cool.
text based, but it's super cute and. Yeah, and very, very tongue-in-cheek. There was a spittoon, and they had to make sure that, like, 3 times that you wanted to dig through this nasty spittoon. And there was a pretty good prize at the bottom of the said spittoon.
Okay.
But, yeah, so it's just kind of that kind of thing. It's, cow punching and,
Interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. Now, how
I
interesting...
can't help but mention that I did shudder just a tiny bit when you said digging through a spittoon.
Yeah, and they made a big deal about how disgusting the spittoon was. I'm like, well,
Oh.
let's keep going and see what happens.
They all were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that sounds really interesting, and I think that the first game we're not going to talk about with you, Jason, also sounds kind of interesting. Astra Near. Tell us a little bit about that.
Astra Near. Astra Near was over at the Indie Mega booth, which I guess I should have mentioned this earlier. Boy, did they have some really cool stuff going on this year in the Indie Mega booth.
Yeah, they did, totally. It was awesome.
Yeah. So Astra Near is a space adventure sandbox game with multiplayer, which is kind of new. So for anyone that has heard of No Man's Sky, and I think pretty much everyone on the planet has heard about No Man's Sky, for better or worse, the first thing that I saw when I looked at the Astra Near booth and I saw their demo kiosks was, wow, that looks like No Man's Sky. It is a very low poly, pastel colored world with a low to no GUI design, at least thus far in its development.
So graphic user interface, for those of you who are wondering.
Yes. Yeah, so there's no health bars floating around. There's no number buttons at the bottom to push. It's if you hover your mouse over something, you will see a key that will interact with that object, or there are visual indicators in the environment itself, like a battery on the bottom of your little go-kart you ride around the planet will show the energy level of the ship instead of having a bar that is separate from the game.
Right.
So it's really, really great. This game has a lot of crafting. It is very well implemented so far. Not perfect, but it's beta. They're still working on a lot of things. It's not out yet. Procedurally generated worlds. Super beautiful art. The team has done a great job. I actually think they've done a better job than No Man's Sky. Actually, I played Astra Near for about 20 minutes, and I've played No Man's Sky for about 8 hours. And the 20 minutes I spent in Astra Near was actually far more enjoyable than the 8 hours I spent playing No Man's Sky in retrospect.
Wow.
Which is something I did not expect. I walked away from there going, man, I just want to go back, except for this huge line of people that also
Hmm.
wants to play this game, so I shouldn't be a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait for this game to come out. I will be playing the heck out of it.
Wow. That's
Yep.
pretty high praise, too.
It was super fun. I had a great time.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to have to look out for that one.
I think
all
you should.
So, going from space to the tops of fiery mountains, what's the next one you saw, Carrie?
I checked out Warlock at Firetop Mountain. I do have an interview and some gameplay video for that. So it's based on some second edition Dungeons and Dragons books that came out in the UK. So it is a storytelling. It's a choose your own adventure
Mm-hmm.
kind of game, and the art's really pretty. And one of the really neat things about it is when you open so the doors here, when you open the door, it's like dungeons tiles pop up and as you open the door, and it is available now on Steam. So this is the first one that I saw that is available. They released it right before they're out of Australia,
Mm-hmm.
so they released it right before they got on the plane to come to PAX West.
Wow.
They were a little nervous and they admitted they might not have planned that all that well.
Wow.
But it is and I actually I had a Steam code for it, so I was playing it some the other night as after I got back, and it's pretty neat.
Oh,
so it's one of
awesome.
those that would lead itself to maybe streaming a little bit. We'll see.
Mhm. Fun. That sounds like some fun times. Now, speaking from on high, what about you, Jason? What was the next one that you saw?
Well, I did also, again, in the Indie Mega Booth, a game called Project Highrise.
I saw that one. It's cool.
It's super cute. Did you play any SimCity or SimCity 2000 when you were younger? Yes, we all did. I think
Yep.
we all did. So one of the other games that Maxis released that wasn't as popular was a game called Sim Tower. And I walked by this booth and I looked over and I saw somebody playing what you could blink and mistake for Sim Tower. It is a very clear spiritual successor to this game. Boy, that's just... I stared at it for a long time. They were doing signups for demos, so I didn't get to play this one at PAX because their demo sheet for the days were full every time I tried.
I did get to play it.
Did you really? I'm
I
so
did.
jealous.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so I liked it so much based on what I saw that I already bought it.
Oh.
So if you've ever played Sim Tower, for those listeners that have, you're doing largely the same thing. You're building a skyscraper, you're building services, you're helping tenants succeed. There's a lot more to it. It is a much more full-featured game than the original Sim Tower was. That game was great when I was a kid. It was pretty simplistic, but I like more complex things now. And this is going to scratch an itch for me that hasn't been scratched in years and years and years. It's going to be a great trip back to my childhood.
Awesome. It sounds exciting. Now, I did take a look at it, and
Yes.
it just... I don't know if this point in my life, if I'm wanting to go into that sort of micromanaging game again, but I think for those of you who do love that type of gameplay, I think that's going to be fantastic for you.
Yeah, this is interesting because it's not an online game, contrary to many new things coming out. And it's, not an MMO. So this is one of those ones where if I have a couple hours free, I could play it just for something to do. It also doesn't have a heavy system requirement. So it's the kind of thing that you could throw on an old laptop and take with you traveling, or maybe they'll even release it for a mobile device. I think that this is a game that could be played on a tablet. I wouldn't really play this on a phone, but you
Right.
could.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be just a cute little time waster for me.
Fun. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Carrie? What was the next thing that you fought your way through the lines of PAX to get to?
Well, it was a bit of a fight to get somebody's attention at this particular line. I had not picked up Super Fight yet.
Oh.
So I picked up Super Fight and one of the expansions, and then I picked up Red Flags, which is actually a really, really terribly fun game. I've played that one before. You send people on awful dates. It's awesome.
Super Fight is so fun. I like that game a lot.
Yeah, Super Fight is great. I don't think the last time I played it with people, I don't think they realized how much I could argue about my choices, and I was accused of being a super nerd.
So let me just say, for those that maybe haven't heard of Super Fight out there, Super Fight is a card game where you build through your drawing of cards a totally ridiculous creature, and you have to argue why your thing you have built, creature of some kind, is better than the ones your opponents have built. So it's a game where you argue with your friends, which doesn't sound that fun until you see the ridiculous things that you can make and actually argue with your friends about this.
King Kong riding a Segway on Mars. That's what you
Perfect
can fight
example. Yes.
Yeah. They now have an online version. It's on Steam. I have access to it. Everybody who bought a copy of Super Fight at PAX got it for free. So I think we should have Super Fight nights on stream.
That would be pretty fun. I won't lie, for even a minute. Fun. That would be pretty fun.
Yep, I think Super Fight nights should be a thing. But yeah, it's available on Steam now. I just checked.
Cool.
Awesome.
That's very exciting. Okay, now from Super Fight to the duality that is playing an MMO while wanting a little bit maybe of a single player experience. I don't know. I'm trying to make things up to get to do a universe, Jason, and it's just not working. So please take me out of this.
Well, I'm going to continue on with the space theme I've got going on here, and if you've ever hung out with me, you would know that I spend a lot of time playing silly space games. I took a quick look at something that is rather new called Dual Universe. This is just being kickstarted right now, so you too can have a hand in its future success. It is a single shard sandbox MMO. So they've built a vast universe full of planets, and all the players are on the same server, kind of like EVE Online is a giant single shard sort of MMO.
Right.
This is a really cool new idea that somebody's putting together. It has a lot of elements of a lot of different games that's being put together in one place. So it's a voxel-based game, like Minecraft, but not 8-bit and boxy. It's a modern voxel-based game. High textures and all that. It has exploration. It has crafting. It has combat. It has player-driven economy, player-driven politics, trading systems. It's really, really complex looking, what they've got promised. And they've got...
Oh, wow.
It looks like they've got some in-engine stuff built on their Kickstarter. It looks like this thing could shoot for the moon, and they're ambitious. I'll tell you that. I'm super excited to see where this goes. There's pieces of a dozen different games. I want to see it. I want to see it succeed. So I've kickstarted it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that's going to end up looking like once it's all done.
Yeah, because this is a pretty expansive list of features that it is promising here.
Yes, it is. That is definitely it.
Wow.
They've got a lot of promises they've put out there. I'm not sure if they'll be able to pull it off, but it's worth a couple of bucks to me to find out.
Mm-hmm.
For as many hours as I would get out of this game, I think that I would gamble on it.
That's kind of exciting. Kind of exciting.
Kind of interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, why don't we go from there to Carrie, you saw Hand of Fate 2.
Right. So on Monday, I was walking by on the 6th floor after, and if anybody has ever gone with the media badge to some of the smaller booths, you get grabbed a lot. And and this was one of the, it's like, hey, do you like RPGs? I'm like, yes. So they showed me Hand of Fate, which is, I don't know how to explain this. This is the second chapter. So the original chapter is out. They're also Australian. And this will be coming out later this year, I think is what they said. And you basically build a deck and then whoever it is, witch or whatever, lays the deck out, and it's randomized in encounters and things like that. And then, but the where Warlock's combat confused me because it was like a Dungeons and Dragons style layout with 5x5 squares. Hand of Fate's combat, I could understand. I could pick it up. It was simple. It was controller based. It worked fine. The story was really neat. They said the replayability is pretty high because you can build the different decks, and depending on, what you do, the reactions are different and the story is different. So it's something that I'm going to keep an eye out on. The original one is now on my wish list on Steam, so we'll see.
I always struggle when I go through the indie mega booth because there's so many games that I want to love, just so many games that are in there, and it always pulls me in so many different directions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to say there were a lot of really interesting games this year.
Yeah. Now there
I'm
was
probably only covering half the games that I stopped to look at. Looked compelling, that looked like they had something interesting going on.
Yeah, I have cards from probably a half a dozen more laying here that I need to keep an eye on for future reference.
Now, what about, I remember you talking, Jason, about going to see Space Wars. That was another indie game, right?
Space Wars, well, I'm not sure if I would call this an indie game, because this is from a developer who has a publisher, and they're a real game studio that's doing this. They're not doing it on their own, but the game studio's only 4 people. So if you try to Google this, folks, if you Google Space Wars, all you will get is the 1962 Space War developed for the PDP-10. So you should really just go to spacewars.com or Google Space Wars Interstellar Empires, and that will probably help you out. So I met with the lead developer. Space Wars is an interesting take on a turn-based strategy game. When you look at it at first, it kind of looks like a 4X game, but it's not a 4X game. It kind of looks like it could be a turn-based strategy game, but it's not just a turn-based strategy game. The developers are trying to build a game that is a game for people that like Civilization. They like turn-based combat, and bring really heavy multiplayer and MMO aspects on top of that to make something that is pretty new and unique. There are 4 factions in Space Wars trying to dominate their way through the galaxy and take over the whole thing, and you do that through turn-based skirmish war games like you would do in Risk or in Civilization. So you have these small, timed, turn-based games that affect the broader universe. They have a permanent effect on the universe, and I guess it's not entirely permanent. So there's a plan to do seasons, like you would have in Diablo, maybe, where you have one faction will dominate the galaxy, and then the universe will reset for a new season.
Okay, Crowfall is doing a similar thing with their campaigns, where there'll be some permanence in their Eternal Kingdom, but you'll have these campaigns which will last maybe months, maybe weeks, maybe a lot of months, and then at one point the world will die and a new campaign will start.
Exactly. That is exactly what they're doing here.
Okay.
So you as a player, you will get a starter ship, and you will get a starter captain and a starter crew. And there are tech trees, just like in a traditional turn-based strategy game, where you use a tech tree and you improve your ships and you get skills for your crew, and you go through and you play these games. So far, what we've seen does not show a lot of story content. It will be interesting because he's shown us so much lore and other pieces that he's developed for this game, but unfortunately we didn't get to see any of that at PAX. This is a really interesting game that's in development. I'm not sure exactly who he's marketing the game toward at this point, because I don't know if I'm that interested in it after looking at it. It's interesting, and they are putting so much detail into it that I can't help but be impressed by what they've put together. But I'm not sure who's going to really be interested in this. Certainly those that enjoy the turn-based strategy games will get a lot out of it. They will play this game a lot, and they'll have a good time. But I'm interested to see what sort of story elements he brings to drag some of the more traditional MMO players into the fold on this one.
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning that when we were talking about it, and you're trying to kind of get a bite of what you were doing, and the way you were explaining it, it's like it's going to be a small niche of people who will be interested, and will probably play the heck out of this game, but it's not going to be a broad audience for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping that he will have good luck drawing in an audience, but I'm not sure that it will be as broad as other more traditional MMOs drag in at this point. Although I guess who knows, when EverQuest launched and when World of Warcraft launched, there may not have been extremely broad audiences for those games either. We'll just have to see how this one turns out.
You know what it reminds me of? Not necessarily in the gameplay, but in what you're talking about. I covered a game for a couple of PAXs, and it kind of dropped away, and I didn't see it again at PAXs or get any PR news or anything like that called Nova Saturno a few years ago, which was like a space RTS. Again, had these huge ideas put together by a small team backed by sort of an owner developer of the studio who just happened to be able to bankroll with some venture capital into this Taytal Studios, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly.
A very charismatic guy, really pushing the game. And again, it made huge promises, and I just don't remember, it's not, it's still there. I looked at it on Google. It's still got a website. It's still doing stuff, but I haven't seen anything about it. I haven't seen a community for it. There's not really any big buzz out there. And the last awards they show on their website is from PAX 2012. Oh,
okay.
So that tells you a little bit.
Yeah. I think
But anyways,
the last I heard
Space
about
Wars.
this game is that there's, it's still in a playable state, but I don't know if they ever got quite to final release, did they?
I don't know. Anyways, back about Space Wars. What reminds me about this is, again, that same sort of indie feel, big, huge scope, which when you have that big of a scope, as Hello Games is finding out right now, it's hard to deliver on all those promises and all those ideas that you want to do in a worthwhile way for players to experience.
Yes. The demo that they had there at PAX showed that core gameplay experience of the turn-based fighting that you could do. And there were other bits and pieces in the client that were done. But, this is still early in development. They're not done. We certainly couldn't get a whole look at the entire game. What was there was pretty polished looking, and so I think the quality of the product will be pretty high. But again, it's that audience that makes me the most nervous about how well this game will do in the end.
Yeah. So it's definitely interesting. It's definitely something we're going to have to look out for as years pass and PAXs pass. We'll have to see if we see this game again and how the development has gone.
One never knows. It could be like Spy Party. It'll just be the staple of PAX coming in the future.
It could be. Now, we do have some giveaways for some PAX exclusive skins. Just watch our Twitter, our Facebook page, and the website. We will mention how to win all of those in the near future. All right, Carrie, you got to see something pretty cool here. You got a couple last things here. Why don't you go through the couple of last things on your list here before we get to Jason's last one as well?
Oh, sure. Well, I took a lot of time and made sure I made it a priority. I have played Pathfinder at PAX every year. And usually they have 6 quest arcs then you get a special boon if you finish all 6. And I have never actually done that, so I made it a priority to do that this weekend.
Fun!
So I got to see the entire story, and it was quite a great bit of fun, and I enjoyed it. And I won nothing at the prize table, and I'm very sad. But that's okay. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is I got a chance to check out ESO's One Tamriel update.
Mhm.
And that's actually going to be very interesting. So there's a couple things going on with that. First of all, there is going to be an ESO Gold Edition coming out that is going to be available in boxes on the shelves, which you don't hear about very often anymore, and online as well. And it basically gets you the base game and all of the DLC. Now, ESO is a buy-to-play game. I know they have subscriptions and a Crown store and some things like that. But this is that's only one of the great reasons that it's a pretty cool time to jump in. And one of the other reasons is they've gone away with the level restrictions on areas. So if there's the faction restrictions, so you can start wherever you'd like. If you don't have to be an Imperial to start in the Imperial starting zone, which is kind of cool. So it's opened it up for everybody to see all of the content they want to see, and especially if you've got I think the level cap's 50 now. So if you have a level 50 character and you have a friend who's just starting, you're not stuck doing the newbie zones. You can bring them along to the zones you're in and see all of that good stuff. And then they've also, some of the older dungeons have changed them to where people get a chance to see the stories in the dungeons. So they'll be easier to see, solo and duo some of the older dungeons to get a chance to see that story. Kind of like what Lord of the Rings did with their epic storyline. Because some of the dungeons are part of the story, and if you didn't have a group to go through, you couldn't actually see the story.
Oh, yeah, okay, so the whole One Tamriel thing, I was so unsure about it at first. I thought it was cool. I thought it might be something cool, something interesting. But what really sold the idea for me, I think, is actually playing a completely different game, playing World of Warcraft, and for this latest expansion, they've scaled everything but the sort of end game zone that you have.
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
About the WoW scaling.
Yeah.
That's the entire game, or just the five new zones?
Just the 5 new zones, just the expansion. So with One Tamriel, they're doing the same thing. They're scaling the whole game to the player. So when you go in, and you're not going to be face rolling across everything as you go and play with your friends in the lower levels. You're going to be fighting everything as if they're your level, and that's going to make things, obviously you're going to have more powers and they're going to have less, they're not going to be as challenging mechanics and stuff, but that sells this change in gameplay mechanic to me, that this is going to be a huge move for ESO, and I would not be surprised if more games went to this model, which is completely different than what I first talked about on the podcast with this whole scale everything model. Okay. I'm such a fan of it now. I think it's going to be fantastic. And they don't change your level. Everything else changes to fit you.
And the drops are appropriate to you. Yeah. So if you are in a lower level zone and you're at level cap, you will be getting drops that are appropriate to you. Right. I think they said something about new drops in the levels for like the you've got the sets. Mm-hmm. But I have an interview. Watch the interview when it comes out. That all of that is answered.
Awesome. Yeah, so I am super excited. You will probably see me streaming some ESO as this update goes live. So,
you may find me back in ESO as well with this, if they continued on that. Because that was where I got stuck, was doing some of those dungeons and doing some of that content. And with time and my busy schedule, I just said, well, I'll get to this maybe someday ever. We'll see.
Exactly. All right, so our last one that we're going to talk about here is actually a game that we've been following for quite a while, that I will admit I'm a little fanboyish for. I really want to see this game succeed. I like the developer. I like the people who work for it. So I'm putting that out there right now. I'm a little bit of fanboys at the folks over at Motiga and what they're doing with Gigantic, and that was one big chunk of sadness that I wasn't able to go see them, especially to see if they're thriving underneath Perfect World, because that was a big concern of mine. So Jason, you did get to go and see them. How did that go?
I did. It went very well. I met with Carter, who you will see. I did a little interview with him. There's a video up and going to be some content up to share about that here very soon. he and the other guys over there seem to be really enjoying working with Perfect World now. We got to do a demo. We got to talk to them about some of their plans and what's going on. And most of what we've seen, I won't even say most. I'm going to say everything I saw, since I haven't played Gigantic in a year, everything I saw is tremendously improved. The game balance seems better. The UI is better. Holy cats, is the UI better? I'll tell you, a couple of years ago as a new player, when you dropped me into a game of Gigantic and gave me a look forward and shoot command, I went, okay, what else? It didn't seem extremely obvious what to do. And now it's great. It's straightforward. It's easy to approach for new players. It's wonderful. Yes, I don't want to spoil the whole interview that we did, so I don't want to talk about everything that we did in the interview, but we did get to play it, and we got to talk to them, and it's great.
Awesome. Well, that's very exciting. So it sounds like you had a really great PAX experience and some really great experiences with some pretty fun games.
Yeah, we had a good time. I go with a giant group of friends every year, and of course, all of my MMO Reporter friends that get to go, and everything we did was super fantastic.
Awesome. And Carrie, again, some fantastic work this year. I loved your interviews. I can't wait to get them out there for everyone to see. So thank you so much for all the work you did for this year's PAX.
Oh, thank you very much. And we had so much fun. One highlight that both Jason and I have not mentioned is we did get to see Acquisitions Inc. this year. They gave him a budget. It was epic.
Yeah. We have watched it from home. We went back and we watched the Twitch stream. We were out that night, but it was Selenia's birthday, so we were out that night. But we did come back, and the next day we watched it, streamed it from Twitch on my Xbox on the big screen, and it's so much fun, fun. And I'm really happy that you guys were able to go and experience that, because it's I lived it vicariously through you. If you ever get the chance, go watch the video on demand on Twitch. They always put it out on YouTube. And if you've got time, go back to the beginning and watch the whole storyline, because they all link together. And it's fantastic to see it. And it's funny. These short little play sessions, they link them all together from one campaign, and they're always linked to whatever the newest storyline is in D&D at that time, the newest sort of adventure pack they put out. So it's
Chris, I got to say, for those out there that kind of think about D&D as this tremendously serious game where everybody's got to be really focused on the rules and focused on your abilities, and the rules say this and they say you can't do that and everything.
Watch this.
The opposite. You should watch this. Yeah. It is completely possible to have an extremely enjoyable, funny, lighthearted, rules light D&D campaign. And this is run by one of the guys at Wizards of the Coast who
writes a lot of the skills and the spells. And at one point in this, when they're like, "Hey, you wrote this spell. How does it work?"
So if anyone's ever been dubious about whether D&D is approachable at a light level, they should go and they should watch Acquisitions Inc.
Yeah.
And if you are the kind of person that listens a lot to podcasts and has a lot of time, this is a listenable event. If you can find an audio only, or even just pull up YouTube on your phone and plug headphones in and don't look at it, you can go through this and see it all, and it's really awesome.
I always think it's a great tease for the new D&D campaign as well, that now I gotta go out and buy that pack, because I want to run my kids are starting to play D&D. I'm taking them through a campaign, and
I'm so proud.
I know, it's amazing. So now I've got to get all these PAX campaigns through the years, and maybe one day at PAX they'll come with me and I'll get to take them to Acquisitions Inc., and then we'll go home and play that campaign. I know.
Yeah, that would be super fun.
Thank you so much to both of you for all the work that you did at PAX. It was really, really awesome to watch from here.
You're so welcome, as always.
And thanks to everyone for listening to the podcast, watching the video on YouTube, or however you may consume it. We appreciate it. Thank you for coming to this week's show. We hope that you come back for next week's, but most importantly, we hope to see you in game. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Don't forget to check out all the other podcasts at MMOReporter.com or by clicking on any of the links here. And please check out our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMOReporter. Thanks, everyone, and see you in game.